Yeah, there's a quote by somebody that I need to look up because I keep trying to re-quote it, but I think it may have been Jerry Seinfeld who said, "Ma!" But he also said something along the lines of like, when young comics ask him how he came up, it's almost like not worth repeating because by the time that he's done it, it's old hat. So there's new ways into the industry, and not that I've like made it into the industry or anything, but my path was via YouTube and putting myself out there and just kind of making stuff and getting it seen by people, which I still imagine is probably good advice and certainly wouldn't hurt. But I'm still kind of like 7 years removed from kind of that part, 6 or 7 years removed from that part of my career. So to say that I would know the route now would be presuming an awful lot. That said, like I think that more and more people are going to find ways into the industry that are less and less traditional because, shut up Michael, that's how everything works literally, that's why it's called tradition. However, I didn't go to uni, which I'm fine with, but I missed out on some of the fundamentals of how to actually work with like a crew, for example. By the time I'd finished my series and I had been making dumb internet sketches that had become sort of popular and I was really proud of, like moving on from that into a real set with a big crew and like an actual cameraman and an actual camera, I suddenly was like, what's a key grip? I don't know. Why am I the director? And so that was sort of, it just meant that I learnt that stuff a little later than I learnt some of the more storytelling aspects of the job. But I think I regret every piece of work I've ever done, like about 6 months removed. Well, I don't regret it, but like I find it really difficult to watch old stuff because there's only two outcomes. One, it's shit and I feel like an idiot. Or two, it's better than the work I'm doing now and I feel like all this drinking is making me stupider and that I've peaked before I've done anything of worth, which would be a problem. So I made the series Doomsday Arcade, which, don't look it up, for The Escapists in 2008 is when we won the film festival. So 2008 to 2009 was sort of when that show was coming out. And then right afterwards I sort of took a little bit of a break. But then I sort of had this idea for a sketch. And I thought like, hey, YouTube's a thing the kids are all into. And so I shot like a dumb sketch and put it onto YouTube. And I did a couple of sketches for the video game Skyrim pretty early on. And both of them like cracked a couple of million views really quickly. It was like insane. And I suddenly again realized like, oh, I can, you know, maybe do some YouTube-y sketchy content and sort of see where that takes me. I wrote a short film called Time Trap, which I've since made, which I think is okay, but the original script of that like was shocking. So I wrote that and I gave it to some friends to read, and some of them just responded with like, it's great, fill it. And then another friend, Jackson, gave me a call and said like, hey, I've got some feedback for you. I'll come around, I'm bringing wine. And we just like drank a bottle of wine as he tore apart why it was the worst fucking thing that's ever been written. It was like a Matthew Riley like fever dream. It was rubbish. And even though that wasn't like kowtowed by any sort of budgetary reason, it's always nice to have. It's so critical to know what feedback to take because a couple of people told me, "Yay, the script's awesome," and that's really great, and I appreciate the feedback. But it kind of took Jackson to be a good enough friend to, hurt me a little bit by telling me it wasn't very good, and he was so right. And as such, I rewrote the whole thing, and it was so much better because of it.
Speaking as somebody who read a lot of Riley when he was a kid and then tried to read it again, I realized it was garbage.
Yeah, me too. I was
obsessed
with him. It was like the first time I read a book, and it was like, not the first time I read a book, but like, you know, like you read books as kids and then you kind of go off a little bit, and then early teenager, you're like, and his face exploded in a bloody pulp, ribbons of red shot everywhere, splattering the ice station, and you're like, whoa, yeah. Like this is so cool. And then rereading it, you're like, oh fuck this. It's like Doom fan fiction. Yeah, I always put a lot of my own time into projects because my background, again, comes from this place where it was kind of just me, like that was the whole crew. So back in making Doomsday, even though that was so long ago, I had to write, shoot, organize, edit, do the sound, write any music if any music needed to be written. And as such, I sort of developed like not a skill, probably almost like a suspicion of relying on other people because I didn't work with others. And as such, I've become kind of a workaholic in the ensuing work. So I find it actually really hard to let go of an aspect of production because I have some abilities to write music. I feel really suspicious if I feel suspicious of using a composer because they'll let me down or whatever. I'll just do it myself. So something like Wizards as well. The Wizards of Aus, which is a series we made for a relatively small budget, certainly a small budget for the concept. We knew that the only way to make it work financially was by saving some money by not having to pay for labor. But of course we wanted to pay for the labor of everybody who worked on the show, which meant that myself and my producer Chris, we could kind of burn our own fees. So everybody got paid on that show except for us. We got paid a small amount for, maybe 5% of our work. So I got paid as a writer on that show, but then I directed it for no fee and acted in it for no fee. And it's not about the money, but it's not about the dum-dum. I don't think it's funny to see it straight away. But then I was able to put in 36 odd weeks of visual effects for free that otherwise we would have completely bankrupted the production. So basically, I can invest my own time. So I did that with visual effects and with music. And that saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is awesome, but ruined my life. So I acted in Wizards as the lead because I guess I have to confess that I must be narcissistic in some way because nobody could ever possibly do that if they weren't. But I think it all still stems from the fact that I've come from this realm where I'm in all my YouTube stuff. I was in Doomsday because when I started making Doomsday at 17, I knew I was always going to be on set. So I could rely on the fact that, well, if nothing else, I can be there. If all my friends are too busy to come down, I can just shoot a scene where I put the camera, hit record, run in front of it, do a side, reverse the camera, hit record, and do the other side, which is what I did in one of the episodes of the show. It was a really great episode. And with Wizards, it was another thing of we had to shave off money. So by not paying the lead actor, I could burn my acting fees. I think we saved close to 20 grand by not having to do that, which was awesome. My cousin, I got my cousin to act in the show. He has one line, it's about 4 words. And so he came along and said the 4 words. And because he was acting, we paid him the proper rates to act. And so for his 4 words, I think we paid him something like, I don't know, $800 to say, poo poo pee pee. It's not that, but I'm not going to do the line. But and then I got paid nothing to act for several weeks, in the shower covered in snakes and having to make out with guys whilst covered in lube and all the other kind of weird shit that I had to do in the show. But it was fun. It was also easy. I'm a very something that I'm bad at, which I think directors should be better at, is I feel really guilty by asking people to do things, and a lot of the stuff that Jack the character has to go through was so thoroughly unpleasant that it was easier writing it kind of knowing that I was going to do it, because I'd just be like, well, I don't have to worry if the actor's comfortable with doing it because I'm comfortable doing anything, so I can just do that. And I'm not an actor. I'm really not. I wouldn't audition for anything, but I can do a shtick. I can twitch my right eye and frown and go, which is essentially what I do. That one piece of acting kind of got me through the whole series. And as Carl Quinn from The Age said, I am the worst actor in the show. One piece of advice I'd give to somebody I hate. That's funny, because I've been asked a lot the other one. And well, let me be annoying and answer it in reverse. Because what I often say to people who want to write and direct is that often people learn how to do that stuff without acquiring any practical skills along the way. And I think that can be really challenging. Because if you want to direct, if you want to write, nobody really gives a fuck about that, except for you. So you really have to wrangle mass productions, or not even massive productions, but you have to wrangle something to make something work. But if you have practical skills and you can shoot a camera and you can use a computer, then you can, if you want to, go out with 1 or 2 buddies and shoot something and make it. And so to be really, I guess if I was giving advice to somebody I'd hate, I'd say be really precious about the fact that you're a director and nothing else. Because if we're trying to climb this kind of, not climb, because climbing implies that there's people at the bottom, but if we're trying to coexist and be happy and successful in the kind of independent scene, then learning to hustle is pretty important from a kind of technical realm. And if you can minimize the amount you have to rely on people, that's certainly helped for me. But, you know, that's why I'm kind of an antisocial, apathetic asshole with no friends.